Well, hello, everyone. It's Shooter. Welcome to My2Cents. Today's victims are going to be Microsoft and Apple, May 5th, 2022. Of course, disclosures. Please print these and review these at your leisure. Well, let's take a look at Microsoft and Apple, of course. And the first thing I'm going to suggest is, hey, when you go to the eye doctor and, you have to flip those little blinders on either eye and they go first or second, well, look at this for a second. Microsoft, Apple, Microsoft, Apple. Now, there's a little bit of a difference. Microsoft is much weaker than Apple. So our relative strength right here is an Apple. These two generals right now are holding up our market. The question is, where do they go from here? I'm going to start with the weak sister first. So the first thing that comes to me is that you notice how our channel on our way up, we didn't really overshoot this wick. I actually had to push it. I wanted to put the speed line down here and say it overshot up there. And then I decided, no, it looked more realistic based on these two tags. It just didn't get as euphoric as rating. It just never came back. And then we got euphoric and it tagged that line. So I liked that versus lowering it down a little bit, just give you a visual of what it would look like. So we had an overshoot up on that high side. However, it just didn't look balanced there to me. That looks more balanced. Now, to the downside, there's no question. These 2 points. Now, we could come in and say maybe here, which does correspond to the levels here. However, you can't negate this. Something happened here. Buyers and sellers agree to settle on price. And whenever you have that kind of flush out, you can't exclude it in your analysis. So equality to me is about right here, right? Now, the way that I see it right now, the count says we come into about 254 and then we bounce to about 313. So I see it as a little flag pattern here. I mean, that potentially could flip over and become a 9-wave over. So elongate it. That would push it out a couple of years, actually. So we could be in this, chop for a lot longer than any of us want, if that benefits. However, my first inclination is when I look at the wave counts. So I have a cycle wave, which has been building really since back here at this base. And we're up about 383, maybe December 2022, the end of this year, which is pretty quick. I don't know if it's that quick. One thing with Elliott wave, it doesn't necessarily give you a time preference. So distinguishing time is difficult. But so I'm looking at this as, hey, this is wave 3 of 4 on our way up, in this cycle. So 4 is going to come in somewhere down here, even though the count doesn't necessarily reflect that yet because it hasn't adjusted for it. So, the most likely outcome is an ABC pattern. Well, this could be an ABC already, maybe something like this, and then it completes here. That's doable. That's within reason. However, for the degree of this slope and how large it is, this leg, looking at the cycle leg, if it's an ABC pattern up, which almost all patterns are, that's a 5-3-5. So almost all patterns are. Equality would be closer to that speed line. So that the larger ABC, I think, is more likely than the ABC I just showed. Okay. Now, the next outcome potentially is an ending diagonal. So at this point, we have all of our counts back testing to 313, 314 range. So we should get a bounce off of that 254 and then come in and all of them show at this point around 314 as far as that look. Now, the outlier is a 5-wave down. And the reason the 5-wave looks viable here even at all to me is because of this drawdown and how much that disrupted the tape. And then we just ran. So if the funding mechanism, which was the Fed, is removed, the reality is we could go back to post-Fed and we could completely retrace that whole move, which is a reversion to the mean play. So there is a possibility with this kind of weakness, Microsoft could do that. So let's jump over and look at Apple, break it down a little deeper. Now, Apple is much stronger. Looking at this base that we put in here, and we broke above the speed line, had nice back test. I could come over here and say the speed line's over here, but I'm also looking at my super cycle count and my cycle wave count. I'm looking, this congestion here between this flat that sort of occurred there, so we built this base and we came out of it relatively quickly, whereas this last breakout we had from November 2012, it really took us, 2 years before we came out of this base. And what did this base take us? From, September 2018, and then we got out of it about a year and a half later. So, so the time frame for us to get out of these ruts is consolidating. Next rut, consolidating. So we didn't put in a real flag program and we're out of it here, right? See how they keep getting tighter going up? Now this is broadening. So I look at this pattern more similarly to this. So count says 141.70, and then we come out of this. However, I don't like that leading diagonal look. And, we get a lot, or have gotten a lot of those counts from the AI or the mathematics that are broken down into this application. It's been delivering a lot of them. I mean, like 1 out of every 4 charts that I look at has some kind of leading diagonal or some type of ending diagonal. And I'm more inclined to think, this internal section of support is more important than the broader in this whole picture, which is this little wick right here on this candle. So equality to me really is based off of these 2 points and lands over here. So I think it's much more likely we get a flag pattern very much like that down to 126 and then up to 161. Now, in this situation, we still have the possibility of an ABC because that looks viable. Now, I have nothing up here to suggest an ABC is here. So that would suggest that we need to come down a little bit lower to get the A done, and then the B comes in and fills out, and we come and put in our C. So again, I'm going to come back to my same statement I said in Microsoft. The most likely outcome for me in both these looks is an ABC pattern. All right. Now, I still see an ending diagonal potentially, just because of how it's broadened. But I don't see a 5-wave down here on Apple, which is kind of good. So I don't see that, Armageddon price to me is really around that 127.30, but we could get the base around 116. So I don't think we're going to get below 116 on Apple. But that's my take on Microsoft and Apple, the 2 generals that I believe are holding up the market. Great trading, folks. Until next time.